shedding light on a very important urban topic, streets and social life in cities. Mansi Sahu, Mahesh Wagdare, and Sarfaraz Momi. They are the directors and co-founders of StudioPOD, an international multidisciplinary firm specializing in city planning, landscape urbanism, and transportation planning based in India and USA. And Mansi Sahu is also the Mumbai chapter leader for Placemaking India. So over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Niharika. Just going to introduce ourselves. It's really interesting to hear from Ethan, Tina, and Dr. Sangeeta about different perspectives. What we talked about from the Western kind of culture of how placemaking and public spaces are being turned around. Specifically for us, like StudioPOD, we call ourselves like people-oriented design. That's what the POD stands for. And our story has been quite interesting. We are on a specific urban design and planning practice based in Mumbai, and now in office in US as well. But our journey has been quite learning from what we have done, because all of us did our kind of masters, three of us, Sarfaraz, myself, and Mansi, in the US. And we spent like 5 to 7 years there, and looking at all the stuff what Ethan was talking about in terms of New York, the Broadway example, what we talked about, how the entire space transformed over the years. We've seen that as well. And then what Tina was talking about, the child-friendly spaces, kind of very interesting perspective, again, from what we've seen in the last few years of practice. And what Dr. Sangeeta has been talking about very aptly so in terms of nature-friendly cities, right? Like there's something also at the same time looking at history could really support of how our understanding of cities, especially in the Asian context, is, right? So when we started off our practice, we had to actually take all the stuff that we were doing and saw in the West, and then actually contextualize a lot of what our understanding was, and actually coming back and seeing the entire experience of looking at different kind of projects. So the idea was to kind of look at the overall perspective from different angles, and the way we kind of went through the whole journey was we actually kind of looked at a lot of planning, master planning exercises, whether it was like old historic towns, temple towns in northern India, villages, and kind of looked at a lot of these the city level interventions that were happening, and taking all of the ideas from these different perspectives. Like in the last few years, it's an interesting journey of like looking at actual implementation of some of these placemaking initiatives, whether it's at a large landscape scale, integrating with the built form and cities, or it's like actual streetscapes and projects itself within the cities. So we're going to talk about 3 interesting projects. Each one of us will quickly go through one of them. The first one is Worldly Connect, essentially being a consultancy firm working in the public realm and planning sector. These 3 projects, actually, one of them is like a self-led initiative working with the local municipal corporation. Second one is an appointed kind of one which we took up as an exercise, which Sarfaraz will talk about. And third one is actually a very different public-private initiative, which Mansi will talk about, the one being mine. So to begin with, Worldly Connect, actually, when we were working on one of the projects in the city, the municipal authorities called us for just looking at one street and looking at public art on that street for the pedestrian alleyway, which was leading to the coast of Mumbai. And when we went and walked around there, we just saw that there's so much of potential, because that one alleyway actually was a part of a larger network within this particular neighborhood. And it actually kind of connected different parks within this neighborhood, and also at a larger system level, connected a transit station, which was an upcoming metro on one side, and then the coastline, the sea face promenade, which was there on the other. So what we really did was looked holistically at how to connect all these links together to this series of fun, loving kind of initiatives of upgrading these public spaces, which were this boring kind of alleyways, which were pedestrian, like unsafe in a way, because it was a lot of dark spaces, and how do you recreate and use them as public spaces. So the idea was to look at the entire neighborhood of Worli from the historic kind of old fort areas, the transitional kind of mill spaces which were being redeveloped within the city as a new future kind of urban parks or corporate parks, and then the future of the place itself, how it's happening. So some of these initiatives, some of these are still under construction. This one basically just talks about how you actually take this one connector and go and transform it from different perspectives, open up the wall which opens up the park, and how do you kind of look at it as a vision exercise of how you kind of transform these spaces. Again, talking about the history of the place, talking about how the entire experience would be much more fun with the kids walking through these as well, introducing some play elements on the way too, and also kind of wayfinding and signage of different level in terms of how it could actually capture some local context and history of the place itself. So this was a very different exercise for us, because we went in and just showed them the possibility of what could be done. But it was so kind of intensive in a way that actually the corporate authorities told us, okay, let's just try one and see how the transformation happens. And we were able to actually implement one of these nodes through this entire exercise of transforming this place, which was again dark at night time. It was a very fun way of introducing light, introducing art, introducing people of coming and interacting with the artwork. The idea of this whole artwork was first talking about the old historic kind of Kolivada, which is the fishing community, and their space. So we actually got the artists from the local fishing community who came in and actually did the entire wall art. And this is already kind of implemented in a very quick way. So going to the next one, which Sarfraz can lead to the Thane. Yeah, we had all these kind of selfie points, which are also very kind of attractive for all the kind of different walks of life. People coming in and just only walking, kind of just pause and reflect at some of these art points as well. And been a quite success in that sense. And now we're taking the same idea and taking it to different streets throughout the entire neighborhood itself right now. So yeah.
So hey everyone. So we'd also like to talk about similar ideas that we had. The earlier version was this very quick and dirty sort of go in, transform the place into something that is lively, has little lights, it has a little more color to it. Whereas there are some projects that we were invited to do some sort of a mobility plan for walking and cycling. So this is a project we did right outside Thane station. It's one of the busiest stations in Asia. It's got 375,000 people using the station every day. Now that kind of traffic that actually comes here was quite a challenge in itself. And what we realized was that there was hardly any space. And like all other cities in the developing countries, you'll see that there was hardly any space or thought given to how much space do people need, where will they walk from, how can we sort of create a little space. So our biggest win in this project was convincing the local authority through sort of traffic modeling and simulations to tell them that we will need this entire lane to be converted into a walking pedestrian sort of infrastructure, which would, and of course you have to prove that the vehicles and the rickshaws and regular pickup and drop off would actually also work. And this is the transformation that we were able to achieve. It's, we are still a developing country. We are sort of figuring out materials, quality and all of that, but we have started to understand the value of creating space for people. And this for us is a big win. In some ways, it's a change in mentality. It's a change in attitude towards spaces and public spaces. We still are dealing with little fights like railings and things like that. But, reclaiming space was one of our biggest fights, which we thought in this space, we created a little more space. A similar exercise we did was in one of the busiest streets in the center of Mumbai. This street is called Senapati Bapat Marg. It's also locally known as Tulsi Pipe Road. This is one of those places that used to be full of mill lands, and these mill lands were then went through speculation, they went through haphazard growth, and what what happened was that a lot of it became encroached with cars, illegal parking, and just one mode of transport was concentrated, and that was, how can the vehicles go and use the street? Now, when we were appointed, it was an interesting sort of collaboration of so many consultants, which is an unusual sort of a project for Mumbai. A private developer bought 2 properties on the street and decided to upgrade them and give it back to the city as a gift, so that their front yard would be slightly better, and their rents could improve because of that. And it's an experiment. So we partnered with them. We went to the local communities. We went to the local authority and said, let's collaborate on this in a truly PPP model. And then several other consultants were appointed. The minister got super excited. And this led to a very, very interesting process of bringing in several stakeholders onto the board. And one of the biggest vision statements that came out of our workshops was that, these are just not for cars only, right? Streets are spaces for people. And especially in Mumbai, where we actually have very little open space, we need more and more space that we have to do a lot of different things and multitask. So that's what we did. We actually went back to the board. We said, how can we have an equitable distribution of right-of-way? Think about intersections, think about walking spaces, think about play spaces, and think about art and culture. And it was an interesting journey. This is the red arrow that you see is what was selected as the first phase of the entire precinct. It was 1.8 kilometers, around a mile, and the slightly sort of orange areas that you see are the 2 big properties that the private developer had acquired. If you go next, you'll see that this is what the context looks like. And where it's written Senapati Bapat Marg, that's where the flyover is. So, you have this flyover that goes on top of it, the base, these are pictures that are usually in every part of any developing and emerging economy. It's chaotic, it's occupied by parking, it's got no proper drainage, no proper place for walking. Pedestrians are all over the place because, tempos and buses are parked just illegally anywhere and everywhere. Now, at this point, our real challenge was, how do we create a space where there is no space?
Yeah, and everyone came and told us, well, you cannot do anything here because we don't have space, and if you start making wider sidewalks, then how will the cars go? And how will we create space? So we actually followed a technical as well as a placemaking approach in order to reclaim space and give it back to people. So we followed the process of doing traffic surveys, traffic analysis, topographic surveys to understand what sort of shoulder spaces are there. And then we also did, because everybody was very nervous, everybody, including the government, the client, the consultants, that this is a project in the heart of the city. If you are taking away 2 lanes from the cars, then how are we going to justify all the traffic jams and everything that's going to follow? So we followed the mid-implementation process, which is called tactical urbanism trials, where we already showed the vision of the entire design, but through temporary placeholders and through paint, just claimed the space and showed the government how it can work. And then ultimately the final implementation of this was taken ahead. So it was a 2-year process. It was not easy, and it was in the middle of the lockdown. So, every time we went out with our masks on, we were just going out for this project. This slide shows the different ways in which the reclaiming was done. So we identified the shoulder space. We identified a clear carriageway for the cars. We identified all the unused spaces that are there and how they can be programmed for the communities and for different stakeholders that are coming and using the space. And in the end, the vision was created. So these are different aspects. I'm not going to spend too much time, but some basic principles so that everybody, all the stakeholders in the government, in people who are living here were happy. So we streamlined the vehicular movement. We created safe pedestrian crossings. Wherever we could, we created islands and spaces for meeting where people can meet. Benches was actually a struggle because people were like, if you put benches in front of our building, people will hang around there, and that's something that we don't want. So, and that could actually mean that people, dangerous people will come and hang out there. So we had to show them slowly and convince them how benches are a good thing. Cycling, this is something that is still, because the idea was to create a model street that included all different modes of transportation. The idea of cycling was introduced as a network, and this one mile was going to be a pilot to test it out. So you will see that in the final photographs, this is right now a multi-purpose area. It's not just used for cycling, but the idea is that at least the space is reclaimed and kept aside. Once the network is put into place, we will give the space back to the cyclists and completely dedicated. A lot of the under flyover spaces were created because we love to fly above everything, all the reality, and we are left with these dead spaces in a city where we don't have enough open spaces, parks, or in this case, one of the densest neighborhoods, up to 5 people live in a room in neighborhoods here. And so we started talking about how different people, children, senior citizens, working professionals, and the local community can come and use these spaces through different times of the day, through different programs, and how we can integrate that in whatever space we have reclaimed, and make that space lively and make it come to life. So the idea of making an equal street and a place, not just a space, was born. And these were some of the initial renders that we did to sort of convince and get everybody on board. The trials were done. I love this picture because, this was on the morning, the first day the barricades were put. And this kid was like, this is awesome. I'm just going to get my cycle and ride around here. These were the kind of shoulder spaces that we realized are actually there, which is just used for unnecessary, chaotic, I guess, just hanging out for cars waiting. And this is the space that it is today. It's converted into a space for people to chill and sit, and it's very well lit. So even at 1 o'clock in the night in Mumbai, a city that never sleeps, people are now sitting here. During the day, we have, we also, since we had a full art consultant on board, we curated the artwork as well as the story that is by art, the signage, and everything sort of came into play. This was very important because this was actually one of the main reasons for doing this project. There were these trucks that were parked with their hoods open towards the footpath. And because of that, nobody actually walked in the footpath. Everybody preferred to walk from the road because it was just so unsafe. This is one of the better pictures with just a single truck. But when you had a series of trucks here, this space was completely unusable. So we sort of moved them into the public parking. We created a space. So just as a reclaimed space right now, full of benches, so that instead of trucks, now you have people who park here and chit chat and meet in the evening. Our cycle track has become some sort of a multi-purpose area where kids are coming in. This is something that in India we do. Our footpaths are like a game. It's a game. You go up and down, and this was almost a 0.5 meters climb. And we had to smoothen it out, and we wanted to do something called a pram test, where somebody using a pram would be able to go from one point to the second point of the 1.8 mile without feeling that they went up and down, because we could not touch or remove some of the services that were causing that. So these are just some of the wins. I'm just not going to spend too much time here because I have a little video that I wanted to show you guys. This is very important because we had an under flyover space that was just made like a nursery where plants were basically dying. And what we did was we converted that into a space for the community to come together. It became a park. Lighting became an important piece. The good thing was it was actually raised by a meter. So while it was in the center of the road, when you go there, you do feel like you're a little aloof from everything else. We had play areas, and today it's completely taken over by kids, taken over by different age groups of people who come and chill here, play board games. There was a Zumba class here, and there were people who were shooting TikTok videos, and all those sort of things are happening here, which is very nice to see. So a space which was basically a leftover space under a flyover became a park that actually invites everybody who's walking here to come and walk from the middle of the road. I know it sounds weird to have a park in the middle of the road, but it's actually working. We also created a program called, or rather we went back to the history, and in Mumbai we have Vachanalays. What Vachanalay means, they are study centers. Because the houses are very small, and if 5 people are staying in a house for competitive exams like IES, 10th standard, 12th standard, the kids actually do study under light poles, and traditionally we had these study centers located along the streets that had 24-hour lights, and that actually allowed for kids to come together, study together, and prepare for very important examinations. And that is a program that we introduced again under the flyover, and we called it the Vachanalay, that the pictures that you're seeing here. And this year we could see that people are actually studying there, which was nice. Public art became something very important because the art actually talks about the history and the transformation that the space has gone through, from the land of mills to the land of corporate parks, and where even
the flower
like the best businessmen want to have their offices here today. So it's really a place that is in this transformation, where you have the old community, but you also have a whole new set of people who are coming to use it, and how this space allows for everybody to coexist and actually enjoy each other's company. So these are just some pictures. We also did the street furnitures, like the bus stops. The bus stops were simplified and made just into a simple bench. We created signage and wayfinding that allows for people to understand where they are, what are the different parks that have been created. Benches became like so good, because today every time we go there, we actually started this thing on Instagram which we call short street stories, because every time we go there, any photograph we click with the benches, just you can write a story about it. And these were some of the wins that we had. So we were able to claim 2.3 acres in the heart of Mumbai and give it back for walking, cycling, and landscape. Pre-implement, I don't know, someone is drawing lines, but sure. Pre-implementation, post-implementation, we were able to use an unused space and, get almost 2,000 square meters. We were able to plant more than 107 trees or 120 trees in the end. So basically, if you all may allow, I'd just like to play a movie. Just 1 second. Yeah. Yeah, nobody draw, okay? So we're just gonna play this. Hopefully. What happened? Are you able to hear? Did you mute?
No.
Huh? Okay,
You have
just
to stop sharing and start sharing.
1 second. As every good presentation has, we have a technical glitch. 1 second.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear the sound? So these are just some pictures of different before after. Just let
बाकी ये कैसा लग रहा है आपको? पहले से अभी कैसा लग रहा है?
अरे पहले से तो बहुत अच्छा हो गया।
हाँ
पहले से तो अच्छा ही होएगा ना।
हाँ। किधर रहने को, किधर आप?
ये अंदर रहते हम लोग।
अरे वाह।
तो रहते हैं।
हाँ,
ये पूरा लोग हमारे खेल रहे हैं। आप जरा उधर कुछ लगा दीजिए। बराबर ना?
हाँ।
देखो
यहाँ से। हाँ
कल बच्चा हमारा आते आते बच गया इधर से, बोलो गाड़ी में।
बाप रे,
फिर
2 व्हीलर घुसी इधर।
हाँ तो 2 औरत 2 थे अंदर।
कैसे लगा तुमको ये? रोज आओगी खेलने?
हाय, आप लोग यहाँ पढ़ रहे हो? आप यहाँ रोज आते हो?
यस, क्योंकि इधर मौसम बहुत शांति मिलती है इसलिए।
ओके, और क्या पढ़ाई कर रहे हो?
मैं मैथ्स कर रहा हूँ।
तो दिस इज
आदेशी जागा नव्हती तर इकडे तर यायला बरं वाटतं. मी कुठे राहता, एकदम लांब राहता राहिला की जवळ राहता? आता परीक्षेचा जाऊन टाइम चालू आहे ना, तर ऑल द बेस्ट तुम्हाला. थँक्यू.
Hello.
Hi.
Do you guys come to play Uno every day here? Yeah. What do you like most about this place? Anyone can come here. Anyone can come here and see this place.
Less
Nice.
people come here. Less people come here.
True.
It's lit up, it looks very good.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much. I hope you guys continue playing Uno here and many other board games.
कसं वाटतं आहे?
आणि गांधी होती का नाही?
People of all ages here and
आणि आता म्हणजे माणसांना बसायला उठायला बरं झालं, नाही तर मग बिल्डिंग मध्ये काय एवढे पैसेच नसतो बसायला उठायला. आणि म्हणजे आता इथे वॉक करता करता म्हातारी माणसं आपली येऊन बसू शकतात. वाटलं तर म्हणजे जरा मनाला विसावं वाटतं, बरं वाटतं, समाधान वाटतं. रात्री पण आली तिथे आम्ही लोक बसलो, आई बसून इथे आवाज तिकडे जायचं होत्या गार्डनला, त्यापेक्षा तिथलं इथं यायल्यापेक्षा बरं आहे ना. सकाळी संध्याकाळी आपलं फिरता फिरता येतात बसतात, ते पण छान आहे. आम्हाला पण बरं वाटतं. आमची पोरं घेऊन येतो आम्ही इथे जवळची जवळ आहे. पोरगेल माझे अंडे तिथं बसवले आहे, घरात करमत नाही, बरं नाही, तू येत जाईल. तब्येत पण नसते बरे तरी आपल्या येतात असतात, म्हणून मी आजाद.
आणि तुमचं नाव काय? Yeah, so that's just a small video to end and just give you a glimpse of the space. I hope you guys can come and visit soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really inspiring to see all these amazing projects that StudioPOD has been doing. Transforming spaces, underutilized spaces into lovable places is something that's really inspiring and interesting to know and hear about. And one of the core values of Placemaking Nepal is also to promote equitable access of public spaces for diversity of users and different modes of mobility. And giving spaces back to people is really sorry about the interruption there. So as I was saying, giving spaces back to people, I think it is one of the core ideas of placemaking movement as well. So all the projects that you have talked about, incorporating elements of street art, which is one of the most simple yet most powerful aspects of creative placemaking to sort of enliven a dead space into a lively place. So these small elements of tactical urbanism, of testing ideas before making any substantial changes in order to demonstrate the potential of a particular space. It's something that's really interesting. So really, thank you very much for such an interesting presentation, and the video was very entertaining. So moving forward.